The last stand the morning, Marcus Chen woke up in the abandoned subway tunnel. He could still hear the hum of their ships overhead. 6 months had passed since the Dominion Empire arrived, and that sound never left. It was like living under a constant thunderstorm that never broke, never brought relief, just endless pressure pressing down on what remained of humanity. Marcus rolled off his makeshift bed, a pile of salvaged coats and newspapers, and checked his watch. The digital display flickered weakly, showing 5:47 a.m. in the old world. He would be getting ready for work at the engineering firm downtown. Now downtown was a crater filled with their black towers, and his biggest concern was whether the water filtration system he'd rigged would last another day. The tunnel stretched in both directions, lit by battery-powered LED strips he'd salvaged. From emergency vehicles, 23 people called this place home now, though the number changed weekly. Sometimes people left, seeking better shelter. Sometimes they just never came back from supply runs. Marcus had learned not to ask too many questions about missing faces. "Marcus, you need to see this." The voice belonged to Sarah Kim, a former paramedic who'd become their unofficial second-in-command. She was crouched near the entrance tunnel, holding something that glowed with an eerie blue light. He walked over, his boots echoing in the concrete space. The object in her hands was roughly the size of a smartphone, but it pulsed with energy and felt warm to the touch. The surface was smooth, almost organic, with symbols that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. "Where did you find this?" Marcus asked, taking the device carefully. Rodriguez brought it back from the surface. Said it fell off one of their patrol units when Jake's improvised explosive went off yesterday. Sarah's voice was tight with excitement and fear. "Marcus, I think it's some kind of communication device. It's been receiving signals." Marcus turned the device over in his hands. The symbols pulsed faster when he touched certain areas, and he could swear he heard something like static mixed with musical tones. Before the invasion, he'd specialized in reverse engineering electronics for patent disputes. The irony wasn't lost on him that those same skills might now be humanity's salvation. "Get everyone together," he said. "We're going to figure out how this thing works." Within an hour, the tunnel buzzed with activity. Their small group included valuable skills that had become essential for survival. There was Dr. Alina Vasquez, a software engineer who'd been working on AI systems before the world ended. James Wright, a former military communications specialist who understood frequency analysis. Even Tommy, a 17-year-old who'd spent his life hacking video game systems, proved invaluable in understanding the device's interface. Marcus laid the device on their makeshift workbench, surrounded by salvaged electronics, car batteries, and improvised tools. The blue glow cast strange shadows on the tunnel walls as they worked through the morning. "It's definitely receiving something," Alina said, connecting her laptop to the device through a series of adapted cables. "The signal patterns are complex, but there's structure here, almost like encrypted data packets." James leaned over her shoulder, studying the waveforms on the screen. "This frequency band is way beyond what we used for military communications, but the modulation patterns remind me of burst transmissions we'd use for coordinating field operations." Tommy, meanwhile, had been experimenting with the device's interface. His young fingers moved intuitively across the alien symbols, and suddenly, the blue glow intensified. The tunnel filled with a low humming sound, and then voices, speaking in a language none of them recognized. "Did we just tap into their communications?" Sarah whispered. Marcus felt his heart racing. For 6 months, They'd been fighting blind, never knowing where the next attack would come from or what the enemy was planning. If they could understand even fragments of the alien communications, it would change everything. Over the next 3 days, they worked in shifts to decode the signals. Elena's software background proved crucial in identifying patterns in the data streams. James recognized military-style coordination codes. Tommy's gaming experience helped him navigate the device's interface with an intuitive understanding that surprised even him. The breakthrough came on the 4th day. Elena had been running pattern analysis on the intercepted signals when she suddenly sat up straight. "Marcus, I think I've got something. These aren't just random communications. They're patrol schedules." Marcus rushed to her laptop screen. The display showed a map of the city with moving dots representing alien patrol units. Their routes, timing, and coordination points were all laid out in precise detail. "They're creatures of habit," James observed. "Look at these patterns. Same routes, same timing, same coordination points. They're so confident in their superiority that they're not even trying to be unpredictable." For the first time in months, Marcus felt something he'd almost forgotten: hope. Not the desperate hope of survival, but the confident hope of someone who'd just gained an advantage over a superior enemy. That evening, he gathered the group around their small fire pit. The alien device sat in the center, its blue glow mixing with the orange flames. "We're going to hit them," Marcus announced. "Tomorrow night, Patrol Unit 7 will be passing through the warehouse district at 11:30 p.m. They'll be alone, cut off from support, following the same route they've used for weeks." Sarah looked skeptical. "Marcus, we've tried attacks before. Their armor, their weapons, we can barely scratch them with what we have." "That was before we knew how they think," Marcus replied. "They're not expecting organized resistance. They're treating this like a cleanup operation, not a war. But we're going to show them what humans do when we're cornered." The next evening, 12 of their best fighters positioned themselves throughout the warehouse district. Marcus had spent hours studying the intercepted patrol data, identifying the perfect ambush point, where the aliens would be most vulnerable. The plan was simple, but required precise timing. Elena had rigged explosive charges at 3 key points along the patrol route. James had positioned their few firearms to create crossfire zones. Tommy and 3 others were ready with Molotov cocktails and improvised smoke grenades at 11:27 p.m. The alien patrol appeared exactly as predicted. 3 figures in dark metallic armor, moving with confident, measured steps. Their weapons hummed with energy, and their helmets glowed with scanning displays. Marcus watched from his position behind a collapsed loading dock. These weren't the mindless monsters he'd imagined. They moved with intelligence, tactical awareness, and absolute confidence in their superiority. That confidence was about to become their weakness. At 11:30 exactly, the lead alien stepped onto Elena's pressure trigger. The explosion lit up the night, sending chunks of concrete and metal flying. The aliens' formation broke as they sought cover, their confident stride replaced by combat awareness. That's when Marcus gave the signal. Gunfire erupted from 3 directions. The aliens' armor absorbed most of the bullets, but the impacts staggered them, disrupted their coordination. Tommy's Molotov cocktails created walls of fire that forced them into predetermined positions. James's smoke grenades obscured their vision and confused their senses. But the real surprise came when Marcus triggered the second phase of their attack. He'd studied the device's interface enough to understand one crucial function. It could jam their communications. As the aliens tried to call for backup, their signals died in a wash of static. For the first time since the invasion, alien forces found themselves isolated, confused, and fighting humans who knew exactly what they were going to do. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes. When the smoke cleared, 3 alien warriors lay motionless in the rubble. Their advanced armor had protected them from bullets and fire, but not from the tons of concrete Marcus had brought down on their heads using carefully placed explosives. More importantly, they'd captured equipment, weapons, armor pieces, and, most valuable of all, another communication device. As they carried their prizes back to the tunnel, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in months. The satisfaction of victory. Not just survival, but actual victory over an enemy that had seemed invincible. "What now?" Sarah asked as they descended into their underground home. Marcus looked at the alien technology in their hands, then at the faces of his people. For the first time in 6 months, those faces showed something other than fear and desperation. They showed determination. "Now we learn everything we can from this equipment," he said, "and then we teach other groups how to do what we just did." The Dominion. Empire thinks they've conquered Earth. They think humanity is broken. But they're about to learn what humans do when someone threatens our home. The blue glow from the alien devices cast dancing shadows on the tunnel walls as Marcus began planning their next move. The Resistance was about to become something that aliens had never encountered before, organized, informed, and absolutely refused to surrender. The turning point. 3 months after their first successful ambush, Marcus Chen barely recognized the subway tunnel that had become their home. What started as a desperate hiding place for 23 survivors had transformed into the nerve center of a growing resistance network. The walls were covered with maps, intercepted communications, and technical diagrams. The steady hum of alien technology mixed with human voices as people worked around the clock to coordinate attacks across the city. Marcus stood before a large map of North America, marked with colored pins representing resistance cells. Red pins showed confirmed active groups, yellow indicated possible contacts, and green marked successful operations. The map looked like a disease spreading across the continent. And Marcus allowed himself a moment of satisfaction knowing that, from the alien's perspective, that's exactly what it was. "We've got confirmation from Detroit," Alina announced, looking up from her bank of modified alien communication devices. "They successfully intercepted a supply convoy using our tactics. No casualties on their side, and they captured enough equipment to arm another 20 fighters." James nodded approvingly from his position at the communications station. "That makes 7 successful operations this week. The aliens are starting to change their patrol patterns in response. They're getting nervous." Dr. Vasquez had become their chief technology officer, leading a team of 12 people who worked full-time on reverse engineering alien equipment. Her latest breakthrough sat on the workbench, a human-made device that could not only intercept alien communications but also inject false signals into their network. "Marcus, you need to see this," she called out, her voice tight with excitement. "I've been analyzing the communication patterns from all the major cities. I think I've found their central coordination hub." Marcus walked over to her station, where multiple screens displayed signal analysis data. The patterns were complex, but Elena's software had identified something significant. All major strategic communications originated from a single location. It's not just a communications center, Alina continued. Based on the signal strength and complexity, I think this is their primary command facility for the entire North American operation. If we could disrupt it, we'd blind them, Marcus finished. At least temporarily, long enough to coordinate a major offensive. The implications were staggering. Since the invasion began, human resistance had been limited to small, isolated attacks. The aliens maintained superiority through coordination, always knowing where human forces were located and how to respond. But if they could disrupt that coordination even briefly, it would level the playing field. Where is it? Marcus asked. Alina highlighted a location on the map. Former NORAD facility in Colorado. They've been using our own military infrastructure against us. The irony was bitter, but not surprising. The aliens had systematically taken over human military installations, using our own defensive positions as their command centers. It was tactically brilliant and psychologically devastating. We'd need to coordinate with resistance cells across multiple states, James observed. This isn't something we can do alone. Then we don't do it alone, Marcus replied. It's time to call in every favor, every contact, every group that's been waiting for a chance to hit back. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus's tunnel became a hub of activity unlike anything they'd experienced. Representatives from resistance cells across the Midwest arrived daily, sharing intelligence and coordinating plans. The young hacker, Tommy, had become their chief communications coordinator, maintaining secure contact with groups from Atlanta to Seattle. The plan that emerged was ambitious beyond anything they'd attempted. On a single night, resistance groups in 12 major cities would simultaneously attack alien facilities. The attacks would be coordinated to draw attention away from the main objective. A strike team would assault the Colorado Command Center during the confusion. Marcus found himself leading the most dangerous part of the operation. His team of 30 volunteers would have to infiltrate the most heavily defended alien facility on the continent. The chances of success were minimal, but the potential payoff was enormous. You know, this is probably a suicide mission, Sarah said as they prepared their equipment. She'd volunteered for the strike team despite Marcus's protests. Maybe, Marcus replied, checking his improvised armor made from salvaged materials and alien technology. But if we succeed, it changes everything. The aliens think they've won because they've been fighting scattered, desperate survivors. They've never faced organized, coordinated human resistance. The night of the operation, Marcus stood in the tunnel, surrounded by his team. These weren't professional soldiers, just ordinary people who'd been pushed beyond their breaking point. There was Alina, the software engineer who'd become their tech specialist. James, the former military communications officer who'd taught them tactics. Tommy, the teenager who'd grown up during the invasion and knew no other life. Sarah, the paramedic who'd saved more lives than anyone could count. Remember, Marcus addressed the group, we're not trying to win the war tonight. We're trying to prove that it's still being fought. Every alien facility we hit, every communication node we disrupt, every patrol we ambush sends the same message. Humanity doesn't surrender. The strike on the Colorado facility began at exactly 2 a.m., while resistance groups across the continent launched their diversionary attacks. Marcus's team approached the former NORAD complex through maintenance tunnels that Alina had identified using stolen alien schematics. The facility had been transformed beyond recognition. Alien technology was grafted onto human infrastructure, creating a hybrid command center that pulsed with energy and activity. The mountain itself had been hollowed out and expanded, filled with the organic-looking alien technology that seemed to grow rather than being built. Signal jammers in position, Alina whispered into her radio. Communications disruption in 3, 2, 1. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Alien personnel throughout the facility began moving with obvious confusion as their coordination systems failed. Emergency lighting activated, and Marcus could hear the distinctive sound of alien alert systems. Move, 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 Marcus shouted as his team rushed into the facility. The next hour was chaos. Marcus's team fought through corridors filled with alien technology, using their knowledge of the facility's layout to stay ahead of the defenders. They planted explosives at key points, destroyed communication equipment, and fought running battles with alien security forces. But the real victory wasn't in the destruction they caused. It was in the data Alina managed to extract from the central computers during the brief time they held the command center. "I've got it," she announced over the radio. "Complete intelligence on their forces, deployment patterns, and strategic objectives. And Marcus, there's something else. They're not planning to stay on Earth permanently. This is just a resource extraction operation." The implications hit Marcus immediately. The aliens weren't trying to colonize Earth, they were strip mining it. But that also meant they could be convinced to leave if the cost became too high. The extraction was as chaotic as the infiltration. Marcus's team fought their way out of the facility as alien reinforcements arrived. They lost 8 people, including 2 of their most experienced fighters, but they'd achieved their objective. As they regrouped in the mountain wilderness, Marcus looked at the data Alina had recovered. The alien force on Earth was smaller than they'd thought, but also more advanced. They'd been relying on shock and technological superiority rather than overwhelming numbers. "What now?" Sarah asked, her voice hoarse from smoke inhalation. Marcus looked at the faces of his surviving team members, then at the data they'd risked everything to obtain. The diversionary attacks had been successful. Across the continent, for the first time since the invasion, humans had struck back in coordinated fashion. "Now we share this intelligence with every resistance group on the planet," Marcus said. "We show them that the aliens aren't invincible, just overconfident. And we prove that humans don't just survive extinction events, we fight back." The blue glow from the alien devices cast familiar shadows as Marcus began composing messages to resistance groups worldwide. The Dominion Empire had thought they were conducting a simple resource extraction operation on a conquered world. Instead, they'd awakened something they hadn't encountered in their previous conquests, a species that refused to accept defeat. The war for Earth had truly begun, and for the first time since the invasion, Marcus Chen believed humanity might actually win it. The aliens had superior technology, but humans had something they'd never encountered: the absolute refusal to surrender when fighting for their home. The galaxy had given up on Earth, but Earth had not given up on itself. And that, Marcus thought as he sent the first message to the resistance network, was about to make all the difference.